Testing, testing. And now what about on the, testing, testing, 1, 2, 3, testing. Yeah, it is doing something now. I'm gonna go on my phone.
You guys coming back?
Great, how are you? That's great. She's not running, she's playing. That's good. No. From Long Island, New York.
It is Long Island. It's like Mass.
It's great.
How you been?
Yeah, good. Yeah. Your family had
Okay, it's exactly 7:30, and we're going to call the meeting back to order. We can have a roll call, please. And just for the record, we are going to be marking Deborah Brooks as present. We marked her incorrectly absent earlier. She is participating remotely, but is unable to vote due to the new state law regarding remote participation, but she is joining us. So with that, District Clerk, please.
Adam Smith,
Present.
Deborah Brooks. Present. Emily Bays,
Present.
Adam Block,
Present.
Julie Epstein,
Present.
Rachel Gilliard,
Present.
Nanette Makonian.
Here.
Thank you very much. And we now have a student performance. Ms. Gilliard, if you could please introduce them.
We're very excited to welcome Mr. Viavatni and the Schreiber Jazz Band.
Thanks so much. As Ms. Gilliard said, my name is Mark Viavatni. I direct the Schreiber Jazz Ensemble. You are going to hear a tune called Buena Onda, which will feature two saxophone soloists, Sean Egan on alto saxophone and James D'Antonio on baritone saxophone. Thank you.
thank you to the Schreiber Jazz Band for that performance. Moving on. We have item 6.1, adoption of the agenda for today's meeting, December 6th. Is there a motion? Is there a motion? Yes, no? Is there a motion? Motion. Ms. Bates, did we have a second? Ms. Gilliar? Yeah?
Why not?
All in favor? Everybody, 6-0. Great.
Sorry, I was
Oh, we're good. Okay. We are going to move right on to the superintendent's report. Dr. Hines?
Thank you, President Smith. At this time, I'm going to ask Dr. Shields if you wouldn't mind just giving us the enrollment report.
Of course, Dr. Hines. The last enrollment report was completed on November 30th. At that point, we had 5,258 students. That's 19 more students than we had this time last year. Dr. Hines, at this time, I'll also like to recognize the retirees that are on tonight's agenda. We have 7 teachers that have announced their retirement at the end of the school year. That's Ms. Barbieri, Ms. Biblowitz, Ms. Harkins, Ms. Hutchinson, Ms. Idle, Ms. McLean, and Ms. Mosier. I'd also like to recognize we also have a typist clerk named Jane Benasato, who's leaving at the end of this year, along with 2 EAs, Maria Luca and Beverly Reese. Congratulations to all of them, and thank you for their service to our school district.
Thank you, Dr. Shields. I just have 2 items I'd like to share with the public, and good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I just want to give a very quick update regarding the traffic forum that we had last spring. I've spoken with the Port Police Department to see if they've noticed any difference with the morning and afternoon traffic by Campus Drive. And the feedback I have received at this point is that there's really no noticeable difference to point out. But I will say from my own personal observations, it seems like it is a bit lighter in the morning and the afternoon. I also know that we have an incredible presence with our crossing guards, who I know for a fact do an amazing job assisting our students either crossing the street or making sure traffic is flowing as well as it can. So we will continue to solicit feedback as the year unfolds, and I'll give another progress update in the spring. The second thing I want to share is today was Schreiber's very first Choose Your Future Fair. And it was an absolute delight to see our students. And let me just unpack this a little bit. So first I want to publicly thank our special education department, our STEPS team, the guidance department, and certainly the mental health team, and Dave Miller, our assistant principal, who envisioned and executed in getting Choose Your Future Fair off the ground today. So we know that a 4-year college, how important that is, but it is not for everyone. And today we had organizations from Port and all around Long Island come together and meet and show our students the possibilities of a career or a 2-year college opportunities that await them. And so some of the organizations that came this morning was our BOCES, the BOCES Adult Education Program, the DC-9 International Union of Painters and Allied Trades, the U.S. Marines and the Army, New York Police Department, Island Drafting and Technical Institute, UA Plumbers Local 200 of Nassau and Suffolk Counties, the North Shore Animal League, the Veterinary Technician Program, Suffolk and Nassau Community College, and the Port Washington Police Department. So many of us saw our students interacting with everybody. They were so excited about the possibilities that await them once they do graduate from Schreiber. Of course, I want to thank Dr. Baer for supporting this as well. And I can't believe I'm saying this already, but I would like to wish everyone a happy holiday and happy new year. And we'll see some of you in 2023, and some of you we'll see tomorrow. So thank you.
I hope I'm in the 2023 group. Yeah. I know. We would now like to open up for community comments. As a reminder, each speaker is permitted 3 minutes to speak, and we will do our best to answer any questions that are asked at the following meeting. Okay, great. We have no comments today. So we will go right into our discussion item, which is an update on transportation. Ms. O'Hara. Mrs. Manuel. Congratulations.
Is that working? Okay. Good evening, everybody, and thank you. Tonight I'll be discussing the transportation. Unfortunately, our Director of Transportation, Ms. Allen, is sick tonight, so she couldn't be here. So if there's any questions I can't answer for you, I will definitely get back to you. So our transportation, I know this is kind of small, but the district handles quite a bit of transportation. It represents $9.1 million of our budget, which is about 5.2%. It's approximately 21 square miles in size, our district, which is the 7th largest in Nassau County. We have 7 public schools, 1 pre-K program, 34 private or parochial schools, and 38 special needs schools and programs. We also transport for field trips. We do athletic sports transportation. We have 5 district-owned buses currently and 1 vehicle, and these are used to transport in-district special needs students as well as displaced students. The main part of our budget is contracted with Pierce. They do our main contract and then about 4 private school routes. We have Dell Transportation for a student and We Transport, and they do a large majority of our private school runs and special needs. So transportation the expenditures can be broken into contractual expenses and in-house expenses. About 10% of our expenses are related to in-house transportation. So you can see from this graph, there's 90% are contractual. So this chart shows you the different types of transportation runs that we actually have. So you can see the green area is in-district transportation. So what that means is it's students that we're picking up in-district and bringing to one of our 7 schools. The red is our special needs students. The blue is private placement, which is 28%, which is quite a significant number of students that we're transporting. We have BOCES at 6%, pre-K is 2%, athletics about 4%, and field trips really just 1%. Now that has a lot to do with COVID also. I think in the past you probably did more field trips. So that's an area where you will see a little bit of growth, I think, in the future. So on the bottom, this discusses the number of students that we're transporting. You'll see in district, obviously, is the most students that we're transporting. We have 4,409 students with 31 routes that are being performed. We have private placement of 546 students with about 31 routes. Special needs, we have 71 students with 28 routes. Now we have a twilight program new for this year where we're serving 15 students, so this is an additional route. We have displaced students, we have 3 of those, and that's 1 route. We also have 33 students attending BOCES programs, which equates to 11 routes, as well as summer school runs, which we have 38 students. So in our transportation, the contracted transportation costs and anything that's related to our education, so you would be reimbursed from the state, about 50% is the reimbursement rate. For the athletic and the field trips, you're not reimbursed for those expenditures. So our in-house operation consists of a director of transportation, Robin Allen. We have 1 principal type clerk. We have a dispatcher that's new for this year, and we have 5 full-time drivers. We have 5 district-owned buses, And this year in our budget, we have funds for purchasing 2 buses. We haven't yet received those because of supply issues. But our goal with those buses is to add one to our fleet and also replace one that was quite old. So it's always good to have an additional bus in case you have to service the buses. You don't want to take one out of operation, basically. So I tried to do an analysis to see what are we doing with our in-house transportation. Do we have cost avoidance? And what I came up with is over $900,000 worth of runs that we do in-house. So we're actually avoiding spending that much money, which is, I think, significant. And they also do things for the district, like transport mail and bring things like tests from one building to the next. So it's a department that works very hard, that's for sure. And we are trying to increase our communication process. We have the dispatcher, which she just started the end of November. So she's working on our routing of the buses. She's learning our new program, TransFinder, as well. And she starts at 6:30 in the morning. So we're trying to have, if there's issues with students coming to school, we're hoping to get the information from the bus company so we can put it out to parents sooner. Some other new things that are happening in transportation, we have the stop arm law, which we discussed earlier this year. That's beginning to take shape. We are working with Bus Patrol to actually add it to our in-district buses as well as our contractors. It hasn't been in full operation yet. We also have the bus app that we've been discussing since last year. Currently, our dispatcher and Robin Allen have been doing the training with TransFinder. We've worked with the technology department, who has been wonderful, doing the interface between our student information system and the GPS system, which is a very complicated issue. Our goal is to have a beta program starting in January so that we can roll out shortly thereafter the app. So, as with any department, we have certain challenges facing the transportation department. We have an electric bus mandate, which I know many of the board members are aware of. By 2027, the mandate is saying that we can only purchase buses that are electric or zero emissions. And by, I believe, 2035, they would like all schools to have zero emissions. So that's something that's affecting all school districts, and we're not really sure how that's going to be implemented. Some of the other issues are competitive bidding. When we go out to bid, we don't have a lot of vendors bidding on our busing. So that creates quite a problem. We've tried to seek other vendors to see if there's something else we could be doing, but it remains a challenge. Also related to the driver shortage, it's difficult to find drivers from our contractors, and when we have issues with the contractors, they're kind of at the mercy of the drivers, which we do have some very good drivers. I don't want to make it seem like we don't, but once in a while there are communication problems, and I know it's frustrating for our families and it's frustrating for the district. So looking at that and the competitive bidding, one of the things I would like to do is gradually expand our fleet of buses. So we can see that we have certain cost avoidances, and I think with the smaller buses where you can do special needs runs or the private and parochial runs, that's an easier place to really save substantially and have the smaller buses, because we don't currently have a place to actually house buses, so that would be something we would have to look at. But that's really the update. I would be happy to take any questions if you have any.
Great, thank you very, very much, Mrs. Manuel, to get used to that. We'll go down the line with questions. Let's start this side. Dr. Block?
I don't have any questions right now. Thank you.
Ms. Gilliar? Okay. Ms. Bates?
I actually was going to ask you, but you did answer my question about expanding our fleet, because when I do look at the numbers and I go back to your pie chart, it does seem that, hang on, I want to go back to that one. It does seem that we have 546 students in private placement, and yet they take 28% of the runs, and we have 71 students with special needs, and they're 22% of the chart, right, the pie. So I was going to ask you, is there a way for us to do more of that in-house? And you kind of already jumped the gun, and so I appreciate that, because I do think that as having experience, we don't have a lot of competitors for the runs, and so we are kind of stuck in what we do. So I appreciate you thinking ahead. So that's all.
Great. So I actually, I have a couple of questions. I think a lot of us probably know the answer to this, but I think it's worth maybe just, explaining it. We obviously have had several parents this year who have had issues with, finding the appropriate transportation for their kids. One of them spoke, I think, at the last board meeting, and I know that there's a myriad of reasons why that is, but can you talk about just some of the transportation challenges that we're facing and how that's like directly impacting, families in terms of not being able to find the correct route or, late buses, things like that?
Sure. So we have an instance where we have privately placed students, and they could live in Sands Point, and we have to come all the way from Sands Point to go like across the expressway, perhaps. We have to pick up a lot of students because you might have just one run, and it's difficult to get students there in a timely fashion. So unfortunately, some of the students are on the bus for a while. And if we've tried to actually get additional runs and spend more money on it, but the contractors don't have the additional buses or the additional drivers. So unfortunately, we understand the frustration of parents and the children, but there's not much we can do. Like, we've looked to work with other school districts to actually share the routes so we could actually just get the students there. But then that also adds time onto the run as well. So we had an instance where we actually split that up and said, we can't share with that district any longer because it's taking our students too long to get there. So we do try to find things quickly, but if a student has a day where it's not working correctly, that's too much, and sometimes it could take us a week to actually find a contractor, get the contract in place. We can do an emergency contract, but it's really saying, please take this student, and we're at the mercy of the contractors. And then, of course, the price is phenomenal, which sometimes we wouldn't even mind spending the money, but you can't even do that because it's limited.
Yeah. I mean, it's, I don't envy the transportation department and trying to arrange some of that. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, sure.
So would having our own fleet help alleviate some, right? Would that help?
Yes.
Is that what you were alluding to earlier?
It would definitely help. I think we would still have some of the same challenges with trying to find drivers, but working for a school district, we have certain, we have retirement plans, we have different benefits that would afford drivers, and it would look, I think it would be a position that drivers might tend to come here. It would give us more control, and it would add more of a personal touch, I think, because there's a difference being able to go out to the driver and say, hey, what's up? This isn't how we do things. But when you have a contractor, you don't have that same control or the team atmosphere.
So last year, I'm sorry, I thought of this just now. I didn't ask you this in advance, but last year there were some instances of buses coming late, and the district wasn't even being notified, so we couldn't notify parents. Has that been? That was one of the reasons why we had why the board had agreed to hire the dispatcher. And I know it's very early, but do you see yet, like, number one, are we still having that issue of the main contractor not notifying us when buses are not leaving the yard? Number one, and number two is, do you see that, to the extent that we still have that issue, do you see any signs that the dispatcher will be able to soften that problem, so to speak?
Right, so the dispatcher really just started like 2 weeks ago, so we are still working with her. Our main contractor, Pierce, they have definitely gotten much better about communication with us. Sometimes what the problem is the drivers don't communicate with the contractor right away. Like sometimes the drivers are trying to solve the problems themselves and not realizing it's causing students not to be picked up, and then it has a ripple effect where each school, so as soon as we find out about that, we try to notify the next school that might be late. So we have seen improvement, but not where we would like it to be. So I believe the dispatcher, she's going to be the liaison between the district and the contractors. And I think she, from what I've seen so far, she seems very knowledgeable and very people-centered. So I'm hoping for good things.
Great, thank you very much. Sorry, two more. Okay, you're begging. Okay, so I noticed here that we were transporting students for the Twilight program. Was that when we had funded the Twilight program last year, was that expense accounted for? I guess I just never thought about there being a bus.
I'm sorry, for which program?
The Twilight program?
The what?
Twilight?
Twilight, oh, yes, we did budget for that. I
Okay.
believe we had it kind of under BOCES though, because we weren't sure how we were gonna be transporting them yet. But
Got it.
yes, we did.
Okay, great. And then the last one was when we had approved the Stop Arm program a couple of, 3-4 meetings ago, I was under the impression that they wanted to get that going very quickly. Is there anything that's holding it up? Is it just getting it scheduled? Is it realistically, where is that in terms of?
Well, Bus Patrol just opened up a main location in Suffolk County. And they're getting everything, they have to get the equipment and everything onto the buses. So it is a process. They need to dot every I and cross every T. So and also the GPS needs to be in place. It's quite a procedure. I actually went out to the location and you can see all the people who are watching the footage from the stop arm, so.
So it's gonna
I'm hoping
be-
it'll be soon.
Got it. They didn't give us any sense of
Not yet.
not yet.
Yeah, because I would like to provide notice to our community that
Right.
there's, I believe it's like a month or so, or maybe it's like your first violation or something, you get a warning, but after that, you'll be getting tickets.
Got it. So we are planning to notify the community before it
Yes.
goes live?
Yeah.
Okay, great. That's all I had. Thank you very much. Oh, yes. Deb, do you want to go now or last? Oh, hold on. Ms. Gilliar? One second. I'm going to let Rachel go. And then
Just on that stop arm issue, you just triggered my thought on this. I mean, it seems to me that there's no harm in notifying the community right away, because I think the goal of notifying the community is not to make sure they can get away with going past the stopped bus. It's to make them know that they should start stopping at the stopped bus if they don't already. And so maybe we should do that immediately and tell them that it's coming.
Up to you, Ms.
We can put something on our website, maybe I can work with Ms. Cullen.
Okay. Deborah, you're up.
Thank you. So the 4,400 some odd students that you have on slide number 4, is that the number of seats that is that the number of students we're actually putting on the buses? Or is that the number of students we're obligated by law to put on the bus?
So I believe the question is, the number of students, is it the 4,000 number she's referring to? So those are the number of students who are eligible for transportation. Whether they all get on the bus is another thing, because I know Dr. Hines and I were talking about ridership and how many students are actually on the bus. We don't have full ridership all of the time, it is something that Robin and I want to look into for the current year, because I think ridership has increased slightly this year as people become more comfortable with all of our environmental issues that are going on, but we don't have full ridership, that's for sure.
Yes, okay, thank you. The special ed, the special education, runs, the 22%, does that include the children who are going to BOCES for special education? Or is that separate from the BOCES number that's there? Or is it children going to other school districts and other schools?
Sure, so that's actually, the BOCES expense is for special needs students who are going to the OC-ED program, as well as the general ed students who are going to OC-ED. For most of the special education runs, those are contracted with the contractors, not through BOCES.
Thank you. I don't know if you know this, but is there a life expectancy of the 5 buses we own? And the reason I ask that is, if we are going to be mandated to have electric buses, and I realize there's a supply shortage of electric buses, are we looking to, depending on the life expectancy of the buses we're purchasing, are we looking to start purchasing electric buses now? Or are we going to purchase the gas or diesel buses, and if they have a short life expectancy, then go to the electric buses? I'm wondering, how are we cycling out of the 5 non-electric buses that we own?
Right.
And how do you envision augmenting the fleet?
Sure, so the question is, are we looking at electric buses as opposed to just purchasing normal diesel fuel buses? So I have looked at this. I've looked at electric buses and what the expenditure would be for that. It's very significant. It's about $300,000 for an electric bus. Where I would like to expand is the smaller buses that transport about 20 students. Currently, there are no electric buses that are for the smaller amount of students. So one of the things Robin and I were discussing is, what if we get SUVs that are electric and we transport, because some of these runs, we only have 1 or 2 students on them. We could do that first and have electric vehicles that way, where we're transporting students and kind of doing some of the electric initiative. But as far as electric small buses, you cannot find them. They would have to be done post, whatever that is. After you buy it, it would have to be rigged to be electric, which is not economical.
So, and what is the life expectancy of, the average life expectancy of the diesel bus as we start to rotate out toward the electric bus mandate?
Sure. Unfortunately, I'm not sure. I would think it's about 15 years, but I will check with Mrs. Allen.
So that takes us right up to basically when that mandate is slated to begin.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Deborah.
Actually, I just want to clarify, that mandate isn't only for buses. It's actually for all district-owned vehicles. And there's also a mandate where I believe the public is supposed to have 0 emissions as well. So it's something that I am very leery of. I don't believe that we have the infrastructure to do that. And I believe that first it needs to be a discussion with the power authorities and also the county level. I think it's something that school districts shouldn't be charged with, because we don't have that expertise of laying the groundwork and doing the engineering that's behind it. So we'll see what happens.
Julie, I just want to jump in 1 second, because in fact,
It's always
Emily
every
doing
time.
it. Only because I know we haven't mentioned this, and I know that, but we did discuss this at the legislative task force, and we are discussing having conversations with our legislators about the electric bus mandate, which I think we do have a meeting scheduled with our assembly person to discuss that. I mean, it's a beginning and it's not going to, but I know you know that. I just was adding that for you.
Okay, thank you for this, a very thorough presentation, and I have all the respect for everyone that has to manage with the transportation and a great appreciation for anyone that has to deal with the logistics. So my first question has to deal with just clarification. The app that we're looking at is really only for the in-district students, is that correct? It will not expand to any of the other runs?
That's where we're starting.
Okay.
So as far, that was something that came up with, among my colleagues, asking like, how do we address that? So we were first going to focus on the in-district students, but then we do want to look at that as well.
Just expanding, okay, great. And then I appreciate, again, the gnawing aspect of transportation from a budgetary standpoint is the fact that we go out for bid, we have a hard time having competitive bids, and then we have people increasing prices. So I appreciate your trying to solve this problem and, you know, looking to increase our fleet. I'm curious because right now we have 5 buses, you say, right? And am I reading this correctly? They just do 6 runs? And I'm not saying only 6 runs. I understand they could be driving all over Long Island for the entire day. But am I reading that correctly? We have 5 buses doing about 6 runs?
Well, just the ones that I listed.
Oh, okay.
I do have a kind of a grid that speaks to everything else they do. They take students during the day. Some students have a work program at the high school. They're transporting them. There's other special needs that they'll go to BOCES midday and come back. So they're very busy all day. Like, we try to really make use of them.
I figured. And so then from that standpoint, do you have any idea of what you're looking at if you're talking about expanding our fleet? What number do you think you're looking at, or to propose even as a starting point? And if you're looking at the expansion of our fleet, are you looking at it to take care of some of the runs that are maybe with either, you know, the special needs or the private placement students, and to offset some of those issues, right?
Yes, that's exactly what I'm looking at, because those have fewer students. So if there's only 20 students or 13 students going to a private placement, it's much more doable, and the buses are smaller.
Right.
However, things are very tight at the district office. That's where the buses are. So it's difficult now to have them here and have parking. So
we'd have to look at that as well.
it's something that has to be planned out. You know, do we rent a facility somewhere? A lot of different things need to go into it. But we currently had 2 this year. I was hoping to keep that for next year.
Okay.
And maybe just 2 each year, you know, until we can grow and get our buses. We can also have buses that have wheelchair access. That's a huge expense if we have to contract out for that. You know, so but for that, you need 2 of them, because if, God forbid, it breaks down, you can't have a student that can't get here.
Right,
you know,
right, right. Well, okay, thank you very much for that. I appreciate that. It's very clarifying.
Ms. Melkonian. Okay,
Okay.
thank you. Oh, hold on, Ms. Gilliar has one more.
For the app TransFinder, is it, and I'm sure you told us this when you gave us the bigger overview on this, but I can't remember. Is it a set cost, you know, lump cost for the app, no matter how we roll it out? Or are there additional costs based on the number of buses that we are tracking with it?
It's one fixed cost, as far as I've seen.
Okay. I'm having trouble getting used to this. I'm sorry, Mrs. Manuel. Manuel, how do you pronounce it?
Manual.
Mrs.
Yeah,
Manuel, thank you very much.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Moving on to our committee reports, starting with 11.1, policy and personnel. Ms. Gilliar, you're on this hot seat.
Sorry, and I didn't pull up the agenda yet. So the Policy and Personnel Committee has actually not met since our last meeting, but we are meeting tomorrow morning at 9:30 in the annex. The agenda is on the calendar online, but there's nothing I think I need to highlight for you now.
Great, thank you very much. Ms. Epstein, budget, we have a lot today.
We do. You know, we love budget, that's why. And we're approaching the budget season, so we're warming everyone up. We had a great meeting yesterday. I normally go with the recommendations of the committee, but I did want to apprise the board of our discussion regarding the Guggenheim Meadow and the Middle Neck Road property. We did have Attorney Matt Lamstein attend the meeting to provide some information on his results of the title search for both parcels. I'm happy to report that the Guggenheim Meadows restriction to be used for educational purposes still exists, and if we want to change it, we can go to the foundation. And under the Middle Neck Road property, the restriction to be used for educational purposes has expired, but the restriction that exists is that the government can come onto the land and use it at any time. This was for war purposes if they need to access the water.
Which government is that?
The federal government.
Got it. Okay.
Yes.
I know Nassau County
Yes,
government.
no, the federal government, yes, we entered into this like during the war, the 60s and the 70s. Right now, that property, the Middle Neck property, it's for sale, and the concerns that have been expressed the most are not necessarily regarding this title issue or the restriction, but rather the current price. We also had several questions about the zoning requirements of the Middle Neck Road land, and whether or not we had to follow the zoning requirements and laws of Sands Point Village, and additionally looking at the potential usefulness of the property by the district if we wanted to go that route. Because we didn't have answers regarding zoning, we asked Mr. Lamstein to further research the zoning requirements and restrictions for both of the properties, and we asked Mr. Graham to look at the potential usefulness of the land. And we will be reassessing at the next budget meeting and update the board. We did also have a discussion about whether a school, no, not a school district, if it uses the property for educational purposes, must abide by the zoning laws. There was some question about that. There has been a recent court decision indicating that a school district must abide by the local zoning laws, which then would really put us in a bind. We already have to follow state laws, SED, things of this nature. So the recommendation coming out of the Budget Committee is to ask that the Legislative Task Force add this as an advocacy portion or look into this, that a district should not have to follow local zoning laws, because if we must, and also New York State Ed requirements, it makes the use of the land very cumbersome, expensive, et cetera. So our recommendation from that conversation kind of tossed it back to legislative to look into that further. I hope legislative's okay with that. Does anyone have a problem?
I think you have 2 out of 2 on both committees. So.
Yes.
You got it.
We're okay. All right. So the real hot topic that we discussed is the senior citizen exemption. And I'm going to preface my conversation with this. At this time, we're bringing this matter from the Budget Committee to the board as a first discussion. If the board wants to opt into this option that we're bringing forth, we need to schedule a public hearing on the topic and then take a vote. So this is just informational and brief, basic questions. The state law has changed affecting the senior citizen and persons with disabilities and limited income exemptions. Bruce Blakeman signed local law 8-2022 to increase the maximum allowable annual household income requirements from $37,399 to $58,300 to qualify for a low-income senior citizens exemption and persons with disabilities. Depending on total household income minus documented reimbursed medical and prescription drug expenses, the exemption provides assessment reductions between 5 and 50% off of the taxable assessed value of one's property. The board has the option of opting into this exemption by January 2nd, 2023 for the 2023-2024 tax year, or it may wait until a future tax year to opt in. I am now turning over to Ms. O'Hara Manuel to outline the financial impact and any other pertinent information that you'd like to share that was discussed yesterday.
Sure, thank you very much. And I just want to clarify, the district already offers this exemption. This is opting into a new salary scale. So the people who are currently receiving this exemption would likely still receive it, um, just not the new scale, right? So districts in Nassau County are trying to figure out if this is something that they can offer. Typically, you want to calculate the impact, because what's happening is you're shifting the tax burden from one group to the other. So normally it's not very significant, but if you have a lot of people who qualify because of this new scale, it could be significant. So I have looked at numbers. It could be as insignificant as like $3.49 a year to each family, or it could be as significant as $400 a year for each family. So until April, the Nassau County Deputy Assessor, she has advised that people would be applying for this exemption in April. So in April of 2023, we would have the information to more accurately calculate the impact to other taxpayers. So I think it's prudent to wait and see what the actual impact is. A lot of school districts are still undecided as to what they're going to do for the current year, but there's nothing that prohibits us from offering it in the following year. So.
Great. Are there any trustees who don't want to follow that advice and wait? Because I think if that seems to me the logical path forward. So unless anybody
I don't necessarily object. I just
Yeah.
want to bring up one of the aspects and points that was brought up at the budget facilities meeting. And realistically, this all has to happen before December 23rd, because we will be going on break and miss the January 2nd date. Is that if there is any new information, or Ms. O'Hara can get firmer numbers between now and then, so that we're not having such a large gap and dealing with such
right.
information that we're not able to fully rectify, that we would ask that she keep us apprised and potentially leave on the table
Right.
that we could reconvene.
And we checked, we can notice a meeting with even 24 hours notice, so I think certainly at least till the end of the year. But that with the proviso that to the extent that new information comes, go ahead.
I understand and I respect the recommendation. I just think that it's a very big, so the difference of $3 to $400, meaning this isn't the $400, it wouldn't be a savings, it'd be an additional, right? It'd be an additional tax.
To the rest of the taxpayers. Yeah.
Okay, I just want to clarify that. So I understand that that is a number that could affect households. I completely get that. However, I also know that we're also talking about the portion of our community, the seniors who are on a very fixed, low budget, and people with disabilities who also have limited income. So I don't want us to miss out on an opportunity to help that portion of the population if we can. So we did discuss this at the budget committee, and we did say that, it's kind of like a very sticky kind of situation. You want to help, because I think we were also told within the budget meeting that the county is going to be opting into it and the town is going to be opting into this program, correct? But I think we did discuss that when you get your tax bill, the county portion of your tax bill, that general tax, and your town portion of the tax bill is not the significant portion of your tax bill. It's your school, tax bill that is the significant portion. So I am asking that we do stay on top of this, and if we do get any information, or if we see that the other districts, because we also are a little bit at a disadvantage that we're the first ones having our meeting in December, where other districts are now having their meetings in the next week or so. And, I don't want us to be put in a position where our neighbors are doing something and we're putting our community at a disadvantage. So I'm asking, in light of everything that we've been given, that we do stay on top of this and that we do call a meeting if necessary. I think we have to have a public hearing, so I also don't know, and I'm asking this really, I don't know the answer to this. Can we ask also that if there is community feeling that we should be doing this or not be doing this, they could always email us. I know that we're supposed to have a hearing, right? But we can always get emails from community members to kind of give us a sense. If we see as a board, right, that we're getting overwhelmed with emails saying pro or against, I think we could always call a meeting and discuss it.
And I
correct?
think we certainly would do
Okay,
that, yeah.
okay, so,
And I was actually thinking something similar, and to the extent that anybody in the community does have thoughts on this, we would appreciate hearing from you either tonight in public comments or by email. So with the point made by Emily and Julie, looking in the wrong directions, that Ms. Gilliard, you have, go ahead. I was gonna say, I think that the prudent thing to do is to, as Mrs. Manuel stated, is to wait, but watch it very closely. Because I don't see how we could make a vote not knowing if we're impacting everybody by $300 or $400. It just doesn't, I don't, it's an information vacuum that we couldn't do to people right now. So that's my suggestion. Go ahead, Rachel.
So I just, first of all, the budget committee is Ms. Epstein, Ms. Bays, and me. And because this is a real serious issue, I want to make sure that even if we're all fine with this course of action, because this is our evening meeting, that we note that the budget committee had a very lengthy conversation on this issue this week and really wrestled with it, because when you're talking about total household income of, from $35,000 to $58,000, we were very well aware that these are households that potentially the tax burden of school taxes is significant, and opting into this program would have a huge impact with them. So to me, it's less what is the public sentiment on this and what is our sentiment, because I think that all of us were kind of on the same page, that our sentiment would be, of course, this is a household income level where they deserve more of a tax break if we can give them it. The problem is that, as often happens, we have been handed this from a different governmental entity without the full information to make an educated decision about what the impact will truly be on our community. And that's the part that gives us pause, because we can opt in at any later date as well. We can make this decision when we have more information. But this information, it's simply, it is knowable to other governmental entities. It is not knowable to us, because they have not given the information to our assistant superintendent for business that she needs to give us more than the impact will be $3 or $400. And obviously, if we're making a decision that's going to make the average taxpayer pay $400 more on their school taxes, this is now an amount of money that also potentially impacts what our budgetary numbers look like for next year, which then in turn impacts what programs we can offer for our students. And so it is not at all that anybody, it's budget neutral if we decide to, sorry, Mr. Smith just said it's budget neutral. It's budget neutral if we decide we're okay with that extra $400. It becomes not budget neutral if we think that extra $400 brings us to a point that the tax base will not tolerate, and that we therefore need to cut programs, right? So I think that when we're making financial decisions, we all want to be making educated financial decisions, and we don't have the information to make an educated financial decision right now. But I agree with Ms. Bays, if a miracle happens and some information comes in, I know that Ms. Manuel is on top of it.
I just want to clarify too, it's not that the assessor's office isn't giving me the information, it's that the information doesn't exist yet. So they are being very cooperative, and they are trying to help school districts as much as we can. So it's just the information isn't there yet.
Sorry, thank you, I appreciate it. Although last year's information is,
people have to apply with their income, so they presumably didn't apply last year.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a little bit of a cart before the horse kind of situation because the program is being rolled out, but we don't have the full information we would need to decide if we want to opt into the program. I think that, thank you for saying that, so we're not slamming the assessor's office, but I think from our perspective, the point is we just don't have it. We don't have the information to know what decision we're making.
Okay, so I think we have our direction, Dr. Block, unless you disagree.
No,
And-
I agree to wait.
Awesome. So, Ms. Yeah, I'm gonna go to Ms. Malconi and then I'll go to you, Deb, sorry. Yeah, go ahead. Ms. Malconi.
I'm okay with waiting.
And Deb, I don't think we can take your opinion on this, but we'll take your question. Question, yes.
Question. Procedurally, the residents need to apply for the exemption, because I'm trying to understand how the assessor's office will have information in April that they don't have now. What happens between now and April?
April plus. April plus.
Is it the citizens are applying? Is that what it is? And they have the same January 2nd deadline?
No,
Yes? Or
April.
So on the Nassau County website, on the assessor's page, it tells you exactly how to go on and file for the exemption. And it lists all of the scale of the income level and any other exemptions that people might be. It's April, yeah.
And we're presuming they would apply regardless of if Port Washington, because they're getting it for other.
Correct.
So the people would be, the people would be applying because they're getting it from North Hempstead and whatnot, and then the assessor will have a picture of who applied.
Actually, this says exemption applications for the 23-24 property tax year must be received by January 2nd, 2023.
Yeah.
So they'll have everything by April.
Do you have any further questions?
And my other question, actually I have a comment. I think that personally, I think what other districts are doing is irrelevant to what we want to do for the residents of the Port Washington School District. I think we have to do what we think is right for our community, and other districts do what they think is right for their community. That's my only comment.
You're getting some head nodding from that, so I think we all.
Can I make one request from
Of
Ms.?
course.
Okay. This is for Ms. Manuel. So here's the request, which is that when we ask the assessors for the information, if we can ask them also for a distribution of what the home values are for the people that are receiving or are eligible for the exemption.
So the information I currently have does give you the assessed value. It'll show you how many people qualified for, if it's 5%, 10%, and it'll show you the assessed value associated. Yeah.
Of the home.
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you.
Great. So we're going to wait, but if you could please keep us up to date as you learn anything in real time. We'd appreciate it. Thank you very much. Okay. Ms. Malconian, curriculum.
Thank
And
you.
thank you, Ms. Epstein, for those updates.
I will be brief. Last month, we had a presentation by Dr. Bear, Dr. Feeney, and Beth Javelin, where we discussed Regents exam scores and 3 through 8 assessments. And we have not had a meeting since. Our next meeting is this Monday, December 12th. We will be discussing instructional technology in the CAM Annex at 9 a.m. And as always, these presentations are live streamed and available on YouTube if you cannot make the actual live meetings. So please make every attempt to see what we're covering with the curriculum committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Malconian. Ms. Epstein?
The
Audit
audit
committee?
committee has not met, but we will be meeting on January 18th.
And that's in person this time, right?
It is an in-person public meeting, yes.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Ms. Brooks, 11.5 legislative.
Brooks has not, since our last meeting, but I can give a status update. me to meet with Assemblywoman Sweetie. And I'm working on arranging a meeting with our county legislator, Delia DeRigi-Britton. And then we have turnover in our state senator and our congressperson. And so I'm going to wait until, I guess, mid-January when they start to staff their offices. Also want to reach out to the county executive's office to set up that meeting, so that's a work in progress. I just want to give an update. I did speak to Senator Mayer's office. Shelley Mayer had headed the roundtable for the discussion on reimagining foundation aid. And I wanted to know where she stood and where that task force and that roundtable, there's no task force, I misspoke, where that roundtable stood. And it was put in abeyance during COVID. There currently is no plan to get it back in track. And the response to me was that Senator Mayer is mindful of the issue, and so just wanted the rest of the board to know that the legislative task force will press ahead to make sure that hopefully there's more than mindfulness there and actually action in terms of statewide task force, but stay tuned. And so our next meeting will be Thursday, January 19th, meeting of legislative task force at 9:30 a.m., most likely virtual. I'm going to caucus the task force and get a read on them.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, moving on to the action item portion of the agenda. Nobody pulled anything. I assume that still stands. So we will be approving 13.1.1, 13.6.3, and on behalf of the Board of Education, I would also like to extend congratulations to our retirees that were already named by Dr. Shields. So with that, could we please have a motion for the approval of 13.1.1 through 13.6.3? Ms. Epstein, a second? Yeah.
The minutes?
Oh, I skipped one. I'll go back to that. Thank you. It was on my paper. I didn't see it. I see it on my paper. I didn't see it on my screen. Thank you. Actually, it didn't print. Oh, it did. It's right there. Okay. So we'll do this, and then we'll go back to 12. So 13.1.1 through 13.6.3. We're looking for a second. Ms. Bays, all in favor? Okay. Ms. Gillier, that's 6-0. Thank you. Moving back for the approval of the minutes. This is 12.1. November 8, 2022, October 21, 2022, and September 14th, 2022. Excuse me, November 8th, 2022 BOE, October 21, 2022 Curriculum Committee, and September 14th, 2022 Policy and Personnel Committee. Do we have a motion? Ms. Bates, a second. Ms. Gilliar, all in favor? Okay, so that's 6-0 as well. What are we going to do? It looks, yeah, I think it is correct. Okay. Okay. Great. Moving along. Yes. Board policy. Yeah, hold on. So we have the following policies up for adoption today. This is policy 12.380, public attendance and comment at board meetings, and policy 8.520, free and reduced meal services. 12.30 and 8.520. Do we have a motion? Ms. Epstein, do we have a second? Ms. Melconian? All in favor? 6-0. Great. Okay. Ms. Brooks, we're back to you for legislative task force.
Well, this is just the resolution.
Yeah. So you want to speak?
Board to approve.
Oh, you don't want to? We're not going to speak about the other topic. We're just going to go. Okay. No.
I don't know what topic.
With the selection of the legislative task force members.
Well, it's just a resolution.
Okay.
To show which members, because I don't remember this resolution being done last year. So I just wanted to highlight that there are certain members who will be serving the remainder of their 2-year term, just for this year ending in June. And then the new round of members starting a 2-year term, and then highlighting the co-presidents of Parents Council to have their place on the task force this year.
Okay. So we'll go right to the approval. So 15.1, there's a resolution in the minutes. Do we have a motion, or in the agenda? Is there a motion to approve? Ms. Bays, second. Ms. Gilliar, all in favor? 6-0. Okay, it's approved. Moving on to old business. The only old business community comment that we had was a parent who had brought up, and we're not gonna, it's our policy not to discuss individual cases, but there was a parent who spoke regarding a personal issue with transportation, and to the board's knowledge, that has been resolved. Moving on, does anybody have new business? No? Okay, we will. That was actually meant to be old business, and it was not here. We missed that, putting on old business, so thank you very much for bringing that up. So, I'll wait till they're done. Come here, there's a sidebar. Give us 1 second. Okay, so yeah, apologies. This was supposed to actually be listed under old business. We had previously discussed whether or not we were going to adjust our polling hours at a previous meeting. Ms. Brooks, did you have anything that you wanted to add on that, or I will just go around the room? I can give my.
No further comments now.
Okay, so I think there's no new update, correct, Ms. Manuel? So we have to decide what we want to do, and if we want to do it for this year, we're running out of time to make a decision. I personally don't think it's something that we should do at this time, but I think it's really open to everybody to decide.
I'm not going to support any changes. I appreciate having the extra long hours.
Ms. Gilliard?
I'm also in favor of leaving as is at this point. I'm just concerned about having voters who use that extra hour to vote, not being able to vote as a result, because I think we want as many voters involved as possible.
I'm really indifferent, so I'm gonna go with the majority.
I will go with the majority. I think it's okay if we wanted to shorten it, but I will go with the majority.
Okay. And Ms. Melkonian?
I'm in favor of more hours. I think that I would like to have it available to as many people as possible.
Okay. So without Ms. Brooks, that's already 4 who don't want to. Go ahead, Ms. Brooks.
I was just thinking maybe we can really monitor it this year and see and really be mindful of how many people come in at 6 o'clock, 6:30, how many people are coming in to vote between 9 and 10, as opposed to people coming in just to be there for the results, and revisit this again perhaps in June. Just a comment.
Go ahead.
Can I say, I know some of this was also brought up because of the safety of our polling workers, right? And where they have to park and things of that nature. I would appreciate, for the nature of those individuals, that maybe we look at either they can have a security guard escort them, if they can change their parking location so that they do not have to walk to such a dark, long way at the 10 o'clock hour or whatever time it is. Maybe that would be a compromise, is to look at enhanced security issues for those people or escorts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that sounds great. So, well, I was going to say, I think there's at least 4 who are not going. There's no majority to change it, so I think we can move on. Okay, so can we close this topic? Yes. Okay, so that's the march order. Thank you. Cool. Okay, so we're at new business. So you want to?
No, I want to to what we just voted on, because I apologize.
Which topic are we talking about?
The legislative task force members. Ms. Brooks, I think you worked on this resolution with who is serving what portion of their term. I don't remember, but, and I really should, why are 3 people September 22 to June 30th, and then the remainder September 22 to June 30th of 24? Sorry, 23 to 24. So 3 people, which are the 3 people that we just added last year, those were the 3, we added 3 members onto the task force last year for 2-year term. The remaining members that you've listed out were supposed to be finishing out their 1 year, their last year, this year, 23. Am I wrong? I don't, Ms. Epstein, can you help me? Because I don't know if I've got this wrong.
This is what I was asking Deb to discuss. Yeah, go ahead.
So, as everybody on the task force knows, I reached out by email to everybody on the task force back in September, I think, and stated my then mistaken belief. I've come to realize that the people who had already been on the task force before the charter, before we took new members, it was my belief they were going to serve 2 years.
Okay.
They were grandfathered in for 2 years. And I was told no, that this year would be starting a new 2-year term for them. That was my understanding. And I was told no, they were grandfathered in for only, no. I was told they were grandfathered in for 1 year, meaning this would have been the beginning of their new 2-year term. And so I asked if everybody who had been grandfathered in wanted to continue with a 2-year term, and they said yes, because my thought was that's how they were supposed to be grandfathered in. I misunderstood. And so we didn't take new applications because I thought there were no spaces available. And we discussed this at the legislative task force, and everybody agreed that yes, those people would be beginning a new 2-year term this year. Because I went back and I listened to the video again to make sure that I understood, and everybody in the task force agreed that yes, they were going to begin a new 2-year term, and they didn't need to take their applications, that their confirmation was tantamount to an application. Now, are you saying that that's not what?
Yes, I'm saying it's wrong. I'm sorry.
Because
Listen to what I'm saying. I'm saying that the resolution should be that everybody at this point is expired. So the 3 new people that came on last year came on for a 2-year term. So they came on for 21-22 and 22-23, correct?
Correct.
Okay. The remaining people that you have going through 2024, they were grandfathered in for 1 year last year that would have ended 2022.
Correct.
So those people
Just got new 2-year terms.
just got new 2-year terms without there being, and they were asked if they wanted to stay on. We didn't,
Correct.
so at the end of 2023, you are only going to accept 3 new applications again, and it's potentially the 3 people that are the newest people. It's kind of, I think, weird. Anyway, I'm sorry that we voted on this, and I'm sorry that
This
I'm
is kinda
just
how
now
all-
discussing it.
This is kind of how it all went down, because apparently this was discussed and there was some confusion at the committee meeting, but it went ahead, and here's where we are. Now it's been voted on. So I think-
Right, so
Yeah.
what it is what it is. I mean, we
Exactly.
can't,
and I was told
This was all explained in the email from Ms. Paredes that we all saw as well.
and I was
No.
told that we
Yeah.
needed to have,
Read it.
Ms.
I just
Epstein
wanted
to- I
remember
read it.
said
Yeah.
we needed to have staggered terms, right? So that's why this is staggered.
Except it's staggered in the wrong direction. I mean, you're but I get what I understand. Okay.
And so, and the other issue that you're raising actually is that when I reviewed the charter, because I was very upset that I had either misunderstood or whatever it was, personally responsible for it, and I looked at the charter, because otherwise everybody would have been finishing at the same time.
No, the only people that would have been finishing are the people that are now on through 2024. Anyway, it's irrelevant. I'm sorry, guys. We don't have to keep going. No. We would have had to have new app.
The way that it would have worked is that all of the people listed on, under item number 2 would not been on the task force this year. We would have had applicants submit their applications anytime, and we just said it, we sent it out last year like in August, September, we had a deadline of before November, we crafted that deadline, and so we would have accepted 7, I guess, new people to serve on the legislative task force. You would still have a staggered system because the people listed under item number 1 would be coming off this year, and you would have had the new 7 people, and so that's how the staggering was to work.
Right, but what I'm saying is that's how it should have worked, but back in September or October, right? So, yeah. Well, the committee should have done it, right? Right. Anyway, the committee didn't do it, here we are. So if the committee wants to,
the charter to me has certain ambiguities in it, where it says that we need to send out applications prior to November. I mean, if we wait until September or October, to me that's too late. We know we know how many spots, as of right now, we now know how many spots are expiring in June of 2023. And so I'm going to come to the board and suggest that we revise the charter to make it more clear as to when we start to accept applications for the new school year, so that come September of the new school year, the committee is up and running the same way all the other committees should be up and running, and we shouldn't have to wait until November potentially. So I would like to ask permission to submit the charter with language that I think helps to clarify that. Ask the board if the board would like to review the charter amongst ourselves and fix that ambiguity, or if we should send it to the task force. But either way, there's ambiguity in the charter that really needs to be fixed.
Ms. Brooks, if I might, I think that it's just the charter reads that decisions have to be made by November. If you want to make the decision in August, you can go right ahead. It was just our deadline was November. And the reason that that was brought into place is because during the summer months when soliciting for applicants, it was very hard to get applicants because people were either traveling or whatever else, and we were missing them. So the August to September time gave everyone the opportunity to apply, review, things of this nature. But the reason and the flexibility of the November language is just have the applicants chosen by November and have your first meeting on the calendar by November. That's why it just says by November. You're not set to a date. If you want to make it clearer and go through that procedurally, I think that's fine, and then the board approves it because the board approves the charter. I don't have a problem with it, but I don't know that we need to go through that exercise because as long as it gets done before November, that's fine, right? I mean, you have the flexibility. It's your call.
perfect, Rachel, go.
It seems to me that a clarification makes sense if our intent is to try and do it earlier, only insofar as that month, November, could lead to an expectation on the community's part about how late the process will be. So, but I leave it to you, Ms. Brooks. I think, if it makes sense to change it or to, publicly notice things in a different way, whatever you think.
And I'm sorry.
Great. Okay, so back to 17, new business. Do we have any new business? Please not. Okay, 18, opportunity for the community to be heard.
Good evening. My name is Ana Agon. I'm a Port Washington resident for 11 years, and this is my first year having the experience with the public school district. My son is a kindergarten boy. I want to make you aware of a transportation issue and then address a bigger issue and hopefully try to put it in the back of your head so we can start brainstorming and finding a solution for the future. Our issue is local. We have a bus stop on Elm Street and Bar Beach, and constantly we're having all our parents driving past the bus every single morning, to the point that I have to call the police this morning and address it with them directly. We are going to have a sergeant tomorrow sitting at that corner to try to help us address this issue, but it has been way too many months with the same problems. And these are our parents, this is our community. The first thing that you learn when you receive your your driver license is you cannot pass when a bus is parked. So the bus driver has been really amazing, because she stops all the way up to the middle of the road to block people from passing. And even though she did so, 2 cars this morning passed right by her. And that's when I decided I needed to call the police. So the police reinforcement will be a short-term solution. So perhaps we can think about addressing our parents, why our students are not walking to school. If you go by that street at 7:50 in the morning, it is chaotic. There are cars everywhere. We're coming down from Bogart Avenue to walk 1.5 blocks only, and it is so dangerous for our children to walk there. We don't have a sidewalk. And I don't understand why there's so many cars. I don't know why our students are not walking. But perhaps we need to start giving some consequences to our community, our parents who are not using the proper way of driving in our local streets. So for me, the safety of my children, my neighbors, and friends, we need to start addressing this issue. The second one, the safety in the bus. Even though I have been in the district for 4 months, I have a lot of friends, because I have been living here for 11 years, who have shared so many stories about bullying, about behavior that is negative in the bus because of the lack of supervision. Understanding that budget is a limitation for us right now to be able to consider having a second adult that will be paid to be in the bus, we can consider having a responsible senior that will be in the bus and maybe count that as credits that will
30
go towards
seconds
community
remaining.
services or something else to be able to address this, because I don't want my child to be the next one. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Lauren Toll. I'm also a parent in the district with young kids. This is my 3rd year here, and we've already personally experienced unfortunate things on the bus, pretty serious incidents. And I have a question. Surrounding districts, it's my understanding that at least in Manhasset, they use the same company, and they have cameras on the bus. Can I ask, can I ask the table, like, is this something that we've considered in the past, or something that's been discussed as to whether we could also have cameras on our buses?
Our policy is that we'll answer questions at the following meeting,
Oh,
so if you
okay.
just give us your questions, we
Right,
will
okay.
endeavor to answer them.
Okay, and then I guess along those lines, I don't know if there have been instances where we've put somebody on the bus to supervise, but if there have been, and if there were to be, would that individual be an employee of the bus company, or would that individual be an employee of the school? And I guess, considering the conversation earlier today, it sounds like the answer to that could change depending on where the buses are held. But, just along those lines, just some information about what's previously been discussed about the safety of the buses.
Can we ask your bus numbers? Could you give us your bus numbers?
Sure. Bus number 10. And
Number 22. I'm sorry, 23. 26.
And schools, please.
Guggenheim and Sousa. 10 is Sousa, yeah.
And 22. And 22 is Guggenheim. 23?
23. 23.
I'm sure you heard also about the stop arm camera program, which was explained earlier.
I think
Yeah.
we didn't do it in enough detail today.
Right.
Maybe you want to give them a little
Yeah,
detail
so,
because
so
it
we
answers
have,
some questions.
we have engaged in a contract with a vendor through the town of Hempstead, who's going to be installing, no, Hempstead, who's going to be installing, believe it or not, it's Hempstead. Yeah, they're putting cameras on the side of the buses, which will give citations like a red light camera when somebody passes a bus. So we're pushing to get that done as fast as possible. Mrs. Manuel had brought that up, but it's not happening fast enough. But we did go into that contract about 3 months ago.
Thank you for clarifying.
Next comment, please. That's it, great. Hold on one second. So we need a motion to adjourn to talk about, a motion to adjourn to executive session to discuss a legal matter. Do we have a second? No second? Ms. Epps, okay. I'll make the motion, Ms. Epstein can second. Okay, all in favor? Okay, all in favor, 6-0. We're not, yeah, to the community, we're not going to return, so we will adjourn from the hallway. Thank you.